Gazara windu Ureh, Magrai. Clouds began to form over the Shadowed Kingdom, dark ones that did not remind Kentrel so much of heaven as of that of the other realm. Arms stretched toward the ruin, Quov Tsin continued shouting the spell. In the name of the balance, someone broke in. I charge you to seize this effort before you cause great calamity. Tsin faltered. The mercenaries turned as one, some reaching for blades. A slim figure clad completely in black eyed them with all the arrogance reserved for those who did not just believe themselves superior in all ways, but knew it to be truth. Plain of face and younger than the captain by more than a few years, the intruder would not have disturbed Kentrel if not for two things. One had to do with the slanted eyes, so unearthly a gray color that they seized the attention of all who looked into them. Yet almost immediately, the same eyes repelled, for in them Kentrel sensed his own mortality, something no mercenary desired to come to know. The man was a necromancer, the most feared of spellcasters. Captain Dumont had always imagined heaven as a place of light, a place where darkness could never invade. He would have never thought that heaven could be a realm where shadow preserved and even the light of dawn could mean death. Of course, heaven to him was any place where he could be with Atana. He had left her some hours before, but still, she had his heart and mind. Kentrel had only slept lightly since, yet he felt refreshed, more alive than ever in his entire life. He peered out of the window of the room given to him to see the city still alive with torches. Although a part of him yearned for some bit of daylight, simply in order to mark the passage of time, the captain knew that could not be. Until the people of Ureh could safely stand in the sun, the shadow had to remain fixed over the kingdom. Atana felt certain that her father could remedy the situation now that they had some stability on the mortal plane. However, to accomplish anything, he first had to be free, and only through Quoth Sin could that be possible. Never before had Kentrel looked to the Vizjerei for any true magical assistance. He had desired some, yes, during the battle with the demon cat, but had not actually expected much. Now, he prayed that Sin would prove himself the master he claimed to be.
Control.
Gore stood at the doorway to his chambers, the massive fighter at attention. Kentrel blinked, recalling that each morning he generally received a status report from his second. Of course, with their work for Sin seemingly at an end, the captain had put all such tasks from his mind. Only Khan's daughter concerned him now. Yes, Gorst?
3 missing. Control.
Missing?
7 came back
He grinned.
drunk. 3 didn't.
Captain Dumont shrugged. Not too surprising, all things considered. Actually, I'm amazed that so many returned.
Want me to watch for them?
Not unless they go missing for a couple days. We're all being treated like kings here. They're just reveling in it, and that's all. The black maned fighter started to turn away, then commented,
She's prettier than on the brute control.
I know, Gorst. Any word from Sin on his efforts? If any of them had kept track of the Vizjerei's work, it would have been the huge mercenary.
The magic man thinks he's got something.
That pleased Kentrel. Good. Where can I find him?
With the books.
When it became clear that his captain did not understand, Gorst grunted.
I'll show you.
Kentrel followed him through a maze of halls until they came to what surely had to be one of the largest collections of writings the mercenary had ever either heard of or seen. While he could read and write after a fashion, not something most men could do, Kentrel could not imagine himself putting together so many words. Moreover, the words in these tomes and scrolls not only had meaning, but power. These words had magic. Shelves rose high, each filled with leather-bound volumes or tightly sealed parchments. No direct system of order could be seen, but as a military man, Captain Dumont assumed that there had to be one. Well-worn ladders stood before every other set of shelves. The tables, with stools, had been set aside for those making use of Ureh's literary treasures. As a mercenary, Kentrel could also appreciate the value of the many writings stored in this vast chamber. Sorceresses like Quov Tsin often paid hefty prices for such books, and he himself had retrieved one or two for good pay. Still, at the moment, all Kentrel saw in the library was the means by which Atana could be free. No, he saw something else besides. Seated in the midst of the lamp-lit chamber, Quoth Sin huddled over books and sheets, scribbling notes with a quill and keeping his index finger on one of the pages of one particularly massive tome. Vizjerei did not look up as Kentrel neared. Under his breath, Sin muttered incomprehensible things, and the sorcerer had a look upon his wrinkled features that caused the hardened fighter to pause. He had seen the diminutive Vizjerei obsessed before, but now Sin resembled a man gone completely mad. His eyes never blinked as he worked, and his gaze went only from the book to the sheet upon which he wrote and back again. A grin that the captain had only seen on corpses stretched far across the slight figure's face, giving Sin a very unsettling expression. Churl cleared his throat. The stooped figure did not look up, instead scrawling new notes over the already heavily covered parchment. Sin, with what almost seemed a monumental struggle, the avian face turned its way. What is it, Dumont? The venom with which the Vizjerei spoke each syllable left both Kentrel and Gorse taken aback. The captain realized that his hand had slipped to the hilt of his sword, and he quickly removed it before Tsin could take any further umbrage. I came to see how you were progressing with Lord Khan and the cities. I could be progressing much faster without constant and innate interruptions by the likes of you, cretin. Quov Tsin slammed his fist on the table, sending ink spreading across the bottom of the parchment and over his hand. He seemed not to notice what he had done, more concerned with spitting barbed words at those before him. You come crawling and squeaking and questioning, all of you, when I sit here on the verge of discovery. Can your feeble minds not comprehend the magnitude of what I struggle toward? Releasing the quill, the ink-stained hand reached for the sorcerer's staff. Malice filled Sim's eyes. Ventral backed up more, nearly colliding with Gorse. Easy there, Sin. Are you insane? Knuckles white, the Vizjerei clutched the staff. His silver gray eyes darted from the two men to the rune-covered rod and back again. For a few dangerous seconds, a struggle between choices clearly unfolded, and then at last, Quov Tsin put the staff to the side, and with much effort turned back to his task. Without looking at the pair, he whispered, "You had better leave. Sin, I think you need some rest. And when was the last time you ate any?" Both of the spellcaster's bony hands tightened. Eyes still downcast, he said again, "You had better leave." Gorse took Kensher by the shoulder, and the two backed out of the library. They said nothing until several steps down the corridor, where they hoped Sin could not hear them. Was he like that the last time you saw him? Captain Dumont interrogated his second.
No, not so bad anyways, Control.
I knew the old mage was ill-tempered. But Sin nearly tried to kill us, you know that, don't you? The giant gave him a brooding look.
I know.
I should go have a talk with Juriscon. And it won't do anyone any good if old Sin goes violently mad. He might hurt someone.
Maybe he just needs to take a nap.
Kentrell grimaced. Well, if anyone could make him do it, it'd have to be Khan. You saw how much he listened to me.
You want me to keep an eye on him?
Gorse asked. Only if you keep your distance. Don't do it immediately, though. Let him get lost in his work again for an hour or two. That might be better. From somewhere within the palace, a flute began to play. Suddenly, Cantrell lost all interest in the damnable Vizjerei's antics. He knew of only one person in Khan's sanctum who played a flute. Maybe if I talk to Atana first, she can better explain it to her father. The captain could not help saying, "That'd probably be the best course of action for me." The grin returned to Gorse's broad face.
Probably be.
Kendrill felt his face flush. He turned to go, but could not help but adding at last, "Just be careful, Gorse." The grin remained.
You too.
The flute playing continued, the same haunting melody that he had heard the first fateful time. Captain Dumont followed the music through numerous winding halls that made it feel to him as if he were repeating his journey to the library. At last, Kitchell came not to a balcony or one of the many vast chambers, but rather to an open gate leading to, of all things, a vast inner courtyard open to the sky, a courtyard doubling as an extensive garden perhaps understated severely the sight, a miniature forest, more a jungle spread out before the veteran soldier, exotic trees and plants that seemed like none Kentrell had ever encountered, not even on the trek to this distant part of Kyrgyzstan, grew tall and strong, dark greens, vivid crimsons, bright yellows, and fiery oranges decorated the tableau in an arresting fashion. There were hanging vine plants and monstrous flowers, some of the latter larger than his head. One could literally become lost within a garden such as this. Of that, Kentrell had no doubt. And near the path leading into it, Atana, seated on a stone bench, played her flute, a billowing silky dress with a long, thin skirt somehow emphasized rather than hid her slim but curved form. Her long red tresses hung down over the left side of her face, reaching all the way to a most attractive décolletage. She did not notice him at first, but when he started toward her, captivated by the sight of her playing, Atana suddenly looked up. Her eyes held such an intensity that they left Kentrell at a loss for how to proceed. Atana, however, took control of the situation by putting down her flute and coming to him.
Control. I hope you slept well.
Very much. You play beautifully, Atana. She gave him a most demure look.
I think not. But my father seems to share your opinion.
Not certain what to say yet. The captain glanced past her at the garden. One never knows what to expect next here.
Do you like it? This is my favorite place. I've spent much of my life here, and much of our exile, too.
It's unique. Atana pulled him toward it.
You must have a closer look.
Despite the fanciful colors of the flowers and some of the plants, the garden had a rather foreboding look that Kentrell did not truly notice until his hostess had led him up to the path running through it. Suddenly, the beauty and wonder of it gave way to an uneasiness. Now it reminded him more of the jungle through which he and his men had fought, the same jungle that had claimed four of his party.
What's the matter?
Juris Consdaughter asked. Nothing. He steeled himself for the walkthrough. This was not the same stark jungle. This was simply a fanciful garden built for the lord of the realm. What danger could possibly exist within such a confined space?
I love it here.
She murmured.
It takes me away from the world in which I'm trapped. Lets me imagine I'm far away in another land, about to meet a handsome stranger.
Kentril started to say something, but decided he could not trust his tongue not to tie itself up. He could scarcely believe himself. Never in his life had any woman left him feeling so befuddled. Broad-leafed plants brushed their shoulders, and occasional vines, seeming to drop from nowhere, dangled near their heads. The path at their feet had been made to seem quite natural, a covering of soft dirt and sand over what felt like solid stone. With each step, though, it grew darker and darker, until at last he could see neither the entrance through which they had come, nor the exit far ahead. Now, he truly felt as if he had stepped back into the jungle. His companion noticed his sudden anxiety.
You're shivering.
"It's nothing, my lady,"
You're supposed to call me Atana.
she responded in mock anger.
Or did this mean so little to you?
She leaned forward and kissed him. His anxieties concerning his surroundings vanished in an instant. Kentril wrapped his arms around her and returned their passion. Then he felt something on his neck, a slow but steady movement, like that of a worm or a caterpillar. Yet whatever crawled upon his skin did so with appendages sharp as needles. Unable to withstand it, Captain Dumont pushed the Tana back and quickly reached for the creature. However, as his hand neared, the thing suddenly pulled away, as if perhaps falling off.
What is it?
Atana cautiously asked. "Something landed on me. Felt as if it walked across my neck with tiny swords at each end of the leg." Even in the darkness, he could make out her face well enough. Atana frowned in consideration, but seemed to have no knowledge to offer.
Shall we leave?
The pain had faded, and Kentril had no desire to look cowardly and foolish before her, especially over some insect. "No, let's go on as we have." They moved on a few paces, stopping again to kiss. Atana then buried his head on his shoulders, saying,
Father still hopes to complete the journey to heaven.
He stiffened. "Is that still possible?"
So he believes. I pray he's wrong.
"But why?" She put a hand on his cheek.
Because I find the mortal world more to my liking.
"Can you talk him out of it?" The gentle caress of her hand against his skin helped Kentril relax again.
Would help if I knew that we stood an easier and safer chance of making our tentative hold on the mortal plane a permanent one. If I could convince Father that, for the sake of all, we would be better off once more among men, then I feel he'd acquiesce. After all, the threat we fled no longer exists.
She wanted to stay, and he wanted her to stay. Yet Juris Khan wished at last to achieve the holy goal offered to him during those dark years of terror. Not surprising, but certainly not wanted by either here. Maybe Sin would know. Kentril started before recalling the possession the Vizjerei seemed under. He did not want to try to speak with Sin, at least not until the sorcerer had been persuaded to rest and eat properly.
Maybe he could convince Father.
Her tone spoke openly of hope.
You think he could do it? The old one seems very skilled, if lacking in common courtesy.
"I don't." The captain paused. An idea began to formulate. one that would possibly play on old Tsin's personality. Atana appeared to sense the shifting mood.
You've thought of something, haven't you?
A possible idea. If Tsin remains constant, it could work to your benefit. I need to think about it a little longer, and it'd be good if I didn't talk to him just now.
I have no intention of parting with you just yet anyway.
The young woman responded.
Not at the moment.
Atana stepped up and kissed him again. Feeling much better about matters, Captain Dumont responded in kind. If the Vizjerei could be persuaded to see, all Kentrell had to do was play on the spellcaster's greed. He let out a gasp of pain. Ow! Something dug into his back as if it trying to reach all the way into his heart. He twisted around and felt what seemed like one of the vines and swiftly grabbed it. What felt like 1,000 pins sank into his fingers and palm.
Control!
Despite his agony, the mercenary kept his hold, then tugged with all his might. A peculiar and not at all human squeal coursed through the garden. The entire vine tumbled to the path, a dark, sinewy form more than 3 times the length of a man. Throwing the end down, Kentrell clutched the hand that had held the plant with his other. It felt as if he had stuck the throbbing appendage into an open fire. Atana! What was...
I have no idea! Your hand! Give me your hand!
Her soft fingers lightly touched his own. The pain receded. Atana whispered something, then leaned down and let her lips lightly touch his palm. Fearful of her suffering from whatever plant poison had gotten him, the captain tried to pull away. With surprising strength, however, Juris Khan's daughter held on.
Please, Kentrell, rest easy. I know what I'm about.
It seemed that she did, for the more she worked at his injury, the less and less it hurt him. Before long, he could even flex the fingers without feeling so much as a twinge. What did you do? He finally asked.
I am my father's daughter.
Was her reply.
I am the daughter of the most revered, Juris Khan.
Meaning that she shared some of his wondrous skills. Caught up in her glory, she had forgotten that she had such talents. Now that Atana had dealt with his injury, he recalled what had attacked him in the first place. Squinting, Kentrell searched the dark path for the end of the vine. His companion found it first.
Were you looking for this?
Be careful. But she looked unaffected by the vile plant.
This could not be what stung you. This is only a Hakara vine. In some parts of the world, they eat the fleshy bottom part. It has much juice and is claimed to be healthy.
That spiny thing? He took it from her, only to find it smooth and soft, save for a few tiny bumps. Frustrated, Kentrell ran his hands along the length of the vine, finding nothing out of the ordinary.
You must have been bitten by an insect of some sort. Probably the same one that bothered you before.
Atana suggested.
Sometimes, some of the jungle insects used to make their way up to the city, despite how the mountain causes the air here to be cooler than they like.
An insect? In Ureh?
And why not? You and your friends are here. Why not an insect that happened to be near? The jungle isn't that far from the edge of our kingdom.
Her words made sense, but did not completely mollify him. He looked around the darkened garden, finally saying, "Let's move on." Only when the first glimmer of light at the end materialized did Kentrell feel any calmer. As they exited, he looked back with barely concealed distaste. Atana and others in Ureh might find such a grove peaceful and beautiful, but to the soldier, it seemed more in tune with the nightmarish curse Gregis Mossi had wrought. Had the timeless exile in Limbo somehow changed the plans in ways that Khan's daughter did not notice?
Now that we've got better light,
Atana suddenly said.
let me see your hand again.
He turned it over for both of them to study, and saw little more than a few healing welts. Kentril could scarcely believe it, having felt as if his entire hand should be a bloody, perforated mess. Running her finger over the remaining marks, the young woman commented,
In short time, these two will vanish.
"It's amazing. Thank you." He had witnessed magic before, but never had it ever been performed on him. Kentril felt certain that if Atana had not used her skills, he would have been much worse at this moment.
It's only a small thing, and I feel bad that you suffered because of me. If I hadn't invited you to walk with me,
Such things happen. Don't blame yourself. She looked up at him with imploring eyes.
will you still talk to Master Sin about trying to get Father to change his mind?
Of course I will. How could Atana think otherwise? The captain did this as much for himself as for her. Old Sin's consistent. I'll explain the matter to his liking. He'll be certain to do what he can to make Lord Khan see it right, too.
I hope so.
She kissed him again.
And thinking of my father, I must go to him now. Since he cannot move from the chair, I must play for him to ease his burdens. Perhaps I can even make a mild suggestion already. He's always more agreeable after my music.
With one final kiss, Atana left him, her slim form disappearing into the garden. Kentril watched her vanish, but although the garden would have likewise been an appropriate route for him, the mercenary did not enter. Instead, he walked around the perimeter, keeping a cautious distance. By the time Kentril reached where Khan's daughter had been playing, both she and the flute had long left. Alone, Captain Dumont took one last measured look at the unsettling grove. At first glance, it seemed no more unusual than any patch of jungle or forest, and as a place specifically sculpted by some master gardener, it should have presented an even less intimidating image than either of the former. Yet the more he studied it, the more Kentril felt that if he had entered it alone, it would have been much more difficult to come out. From behind him, someone cleared his throat. Captain? Albor! He hoped that the other mercenary had not noticed him jump ever so slightly. What is it? Sorry to bother you, but a couple of us were wondering when we might get our reward from his lordship, so we can get going home. You're already tired of all the acclamation, Albor? The plain-faced, white-haired fighter looked a bit uncomfortable. Kensher forgot that, despite his experience and skills, Albert was much younger than most of those in the company, that he had often been left in charge when Gorse could not be spared, had said much for his abilities. It's not that I had a good time as any captain, but a few of us want to know when we're going to head back to Westmarch. He shrugged. Just feel a bit more comfortable at home than here, sir. The last thing that Kensher wanted was to leave, but he could understand how the others might feel. Gorst would probably stay. He had no family, no kin. The rest, though, had ties to the Western Kingdom, even loved ones. That these men served as mercenaries had as much to do with feeding mouths as with becoming rich. All thought of the garden fading. The captain patted Albert on the shoulder. I'll see what I can do about being done is about sending a lot of you home. If I do, can I trust you to bring something back to the family of those lost? If I read our good host right, one small sack should have enough to split among the survivors and leave them well off. Aye, Captain. You know I'll be honest. Kentrell had no doubt about that. He also knew which other men from the survivors could be cut from similar cloth. No one joined Captain Dumont's company who did not first undergo thorough scrutiny. If Kentrell sent Albert home with coin for those left behind by Benjamin, Hargo, and the others, it would reach them. Grateful, the younger fighter saluted. He started to step away, then hesitated. Captain, 2 men still haven't come back from the city. I know. Gorse told me 3, actually. Simon dragged himself in just a little while ago, but he said Jace was heading back hours before, and no one's seen sign of Breck. Having known far too many men like the pair missing, Petrol shrugged off Albert's concern. They'll pop off, you'll see. They won't want to miss their share, remember? Should I send someone out to look? Not now. The captain became a little impatient. He needed to take some time to think about how best to phrase things so that Sin would readily see his point of view. Kentrell had no more time to waste on drunken mercenaries gone astray. I told Gorst already that if they don't show up in a couple days, maybe then. Hoping he had not sounded too uncaring, Captain Dumont patted Albert's shoulder again. Try to relax. Enjoy this. Believe me, Albert, it happens all too little for those like us. The jungle we crossed, or that winter near the Gulf of Westmarch, that's our usual payoff. Albert gave him a plowboy smile, reminding Kentrell of the background of almost every low-paid mercenary ever born. I suppose I could take the food and women a little longer. That's the spirit, the older fighter proclaimed as he began guiding the other back down the hall. In his mind, Kentrell pictured Atana, his own reason for staying, perhaps forever. At least until he had talked to Vizjerei and persuading Jurus Khan no longer to seek the righteous path to heaven, the captain did not want to broach the subject of payment. It was not as if Albert and the others were not being rewarded in other ways. Besides, Kentrell thought, what harm could a few more days waiting do?